It's Thursday, November the 18th, King of the Mountain State Show. I'm Chase Hill. I'm here with the ringmaster, James Armstrong. We're just over 2 events away from the championship round of this year's King of the Mountain State tournament. Super excited about it. We're going to change roles today. I'm introducing James, and he's going to be asking the questions. Once again, man, thanks for sitting down and talking to me.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. Very excited. I cannot believe we're 2 short weeks away from crowning a couple of monsters, king of the Mountain State. So let's just go back. You and I talk, all the time about it. You come up with ideas. Sometimes, we go through with it. Other times we don't. What's your reason? Why'd you come up with King of the Mountain State?
So as you know, this is something I wanted to do for a long time. In our state, we've never really truly known like who's the best. We know who's the best each year in Beckley. We know who's the best each year in Parkersburg and throughout the state, these different little pockets, but we never truly know like who's the best in the state. And West Virginia is a state full of a bunch of good fighters. And we're seeing them kind of grow like as our tournament has grown. But the number one reason of doing it was to figure out like who's the best. And I thought that was a mystery thing that should have been solved a long time ago. And the way that we put the tournament together, we found the best that we could, 16 guys. They were all eligible to fight each other. Same weight class, basically same size, or at least they qualified and about the same experience level. But we even did a random drawing. We put these guys' names in a hat. We drew them out to set the bracket. So there was no prejudice into who was going to fight who. There was no predetermination at how things were going to go. And so now here we are, all the way. We started the first event back in July. It's December. We've had 2 guys fight their way all the way through the tournament. And we're going to finally find out who's the best in our state as far as amateur boxing goes. And it's exciting. Like you said, like we've waited 6-7 months to do it, but I've been waiting a decade to do something like this where we could really find out who's the best.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely have. And we've been back and forth on it. I think you hit it dead on whenever you're talking about matchups and actually looking for boxers/fighters, as opposed to just saying, hey, come on in, sign up, and you can be in this tournament. It's not what it's about. And I think that it's been proven that, people get their money's worth. And that's how I always sit back and look at it.
And, one of the things we really put a lot of time into that nobody saw was I spent 6 months trying to find the right guys. Like right. You said, there was no website to just go and sign up. There was no, hey, if you want to fight, show up, whatever. Like we went out and handpicked these guys. They were mailed invitations in the mail and they accepted the right to come to the tournament. And I thought we put a really good group together, with the resources that we had. And now here we are. I truly feel like we've got the best 2 guys in the state about to fight.
I agree. Yeah, I definitely think that it's been, it's actually, there's been some surprises, of course. But at the same time, it's really worked out pretty well. A lot of these fighters, have been matched up almost perfectly. We've had a lot of those where it's been kind of boxer versus slugger type thing. And, you and I always say, if it's really evenly matched, the boxer's going to win. And I still do go with that. But we've also seen that it hasn't necessarily been that way. And I think that's why we do it, right?
Right.
That's, you're not looking, just for the best boxer. We're looking for the baddest man in West Virginia. And so I think we may very well figure that out. So how about a recap of the tournament? Like you said, I think we started in July. We've had 3 shows. This will be the 4th show. What's built us up to there? What kind of surprises have we had? That type of thing.
So the short version of that is we started back in July in Bluefield. We had 16 guys, heavyweights that started it off. I took some of the fighters on recommendations. Somebody that I really trusted, really knew would say, hey, I've got this fighter. Trust me, he's good. I'd see clips of him fighting a little bit, maybe in a gym. We'd put him in there. So we start off in July in Bluefield, and surprise, surprise, all 16 guys show up. All 16 guys show up. All 16 guys are ready to fight. They all leave it all out in the ring. We have a great event. We end up with 8 guys. Then we fast forward to August. We go to Huntington. We introduce the light heavyweights. What happened with the light heavyweights was we put together a group of guys that once we got 6, 7, 8 of these guys, nobody else wanted to fight them. So when you start seeing a roster of Ladre Stallworth, Zach Gillenwater, Keenan Williams, those type of guys, Mitchell Reynolds, Arthur Brown, Tyler Ainsco, like when you started to see that group of guys, we knew we had the best 8 right off the bat. So we started there. Super exciting watching the light heavyweights. After watching the heavyweights, there were some big knockouts in round 1. There were some big knockouts in round 2. But we came out of the Huntington event and we were down to 4 guys in each weight class. So then we go to Welch. You know, it was the undercard of the pro state championship fight where Gabe Lambert was successful, won an ABA title, won a West Virginia title in the professional ranks. We had our semifinals. Couldn't have been any more even fights. We came out of that. Super excited that we had narrowed it down to 2 guys. And here we are back in Huntington. We come back to Huntington with a Gary Rowland in the heavyweights versus Matt Adams. Light heavyweight, we have Arthur Brown versus Tyler Ainsco. Both fights worth the price of admission by themselves. I truly feel like those are the best. Those guys have now fought their way undefeated all the way to this point. It's taken 4 events to get here. Super excited about it. Even going into next year, how the tournament's going to play out now that we've got so much momentum. We're introducing new weight classes. But to get to where we're at now, those 4 guys, Gary Rowland, Matt Adams, Tyler Ainsco, and Arthur Brown, they have fought their way through the state, multiple locations, different ring sizes, not knowing, necessarily in the beginning who they were going to fight, but then being able to research their opponents and put a game plan together. They've really upped their training. These guys have earned it, and we're just 2 weeks away from finding out which one of them is the king of West Virginia.
I mean, you hit head on whenever you say they earned it, because every one of them have been tested. That's the thing. The first guy that always pops to my mind in this tournament is Gary Rowland, and we say it every single podcast, every time we talk, but it's because he's just a monster, right? I mean, it's this big, scary, muscle-bound guy, but he can also box. He can fly around the ring whenever he needs to. Just super impressive. But, he's been tested along the way. When he fought Grizzle, that fight could have went either way. And, Grizzle is a heck of a boxer. We mention Joe Board all the time because his guys always come to fight, whether they're the basic amateur, that's their first or second fight they've ever fought, all the way through to his, more tenured guys, his veteran fighters. They're all, just polished. And you can just see that the difference there. Those are boxers that are coming. So he's been tested. Matt Adams has been tested a few times. The last fight that he fought could have went either way. The guy that he beat, on the cards to get there has beat Gary Rowland in the past. Yeah. So, it's super impressive. And everybody, I think every fight that Arthur Brown and Tyler Ainscough have been in, have been one of those where we think they won, but we wouldn't have been shocked had they lost.
Well, and I've talked with both those guys, and I told Gary, I said, Gary, you beat Gabe Lambert in the first round. Gabe Lambert, 6'4", 270, a 2-time semi-pro champion. I don't know if Gabe had ever lost up to that point, and I had him as one of my favorites winning it all. Gary beat him. Gary beat the left-handed southpaw Luke Grizzle. He beat Brandon Boggs down in Welch, and then now he's got Matt Adams. Yeah. And then the same thing, like you brought up, you could talk to Matt Adams. You could say, hey, man, the only guy that's ever beat Gary Rowland was Derek Gibson. Now, if I had to put money on the beginning of the tournament, who was going to win it all, it was probably Derek Gibson, and Matt beat him. So, yeah, these guys have definitely earned their way to the championship for sure.
Yeah, it's just been super impressive. And I always go back to, I'm there as the ring announcer, have a great time doing it. But if I was to walk in and pay for a ticket and sit down, and I leave every evening when I've gotten my money's worth. And these fights have been, the whole entire show has just been hands down, no question. You get 10 times your money's worth. There are 1 or 2 fights every single time that are worth, the money that you're paying, whether you're, getting on pay-per-view or you're paying to be at the venue. It is exciting It's true boxing, true fighters. These guys are skilled. It's just so it's just been. I'm very, very excited for the final, especially for that heavyweight matchup. But so these guys have fought. There's only 2 fights left to see who gets it. So let's talk about the big prize at the end.
Yeah. So we've used the same belt maker throughout the pros and the ABA and different stuff that we've used, state championships. We've used the same company. They actually make the belts for the WBC, WBA. There's a lot of organizations that they make big belts for. That's one thing that we do above and beyond. Like, we've written some big checks for these belts. Like, they are custom made. They are specific to the event. They have our logos and stuff. They're nice. I would put them up against anything. I think I gave these guys the choice. I spent some time talking with Matt Adams and Gary Rowland, gave them a few options as to what the prize would be once we got to this point. And the boxers in them came out. Boxers like belts, and I don't blame them. I do too. So we were able to put together a custom design, green leather with white trim. It's got the king panels on the side and in the centerpiece. It's decorated up there pretty nice. It's got the state logo in the middle. It says West Virginia champion on it, making sure everybody knows they're the best. And it's got their weight class on the side. I'm definitely excited about those. And as far as like who's going to win, when it comes down to Matt Adams and Gary Rowland, they're the same. They're not much different. Those guys are tough. They walk forward. We talk about Vegas prop bets. When Vegas would have something, who's going to win the kickoff, who's going to have the most receiving yards, whatever. I would like to make a prop bet and say who's going to walk forward, because I can't imagine either guy backing up. Those 2 guys, Gary's a little bit more experienced than Matt. Matt really got into boxing whenever this started. But he's with a great coach now. He's with Justin Navarre, a teddy bear. And boy, you'd want to talk about getting with somebody who can turn you into a boxer real quick. He's the guy. And we've seen that growth. So, prediction on those 2 and who gets that belt, I think it's who's better that night. I think they're the same style fighter. Probably the most exciting amateur boxing match that our state's seen in a long time. Whoever's better that night's going to win. They're both tough, strong. Offense is the best defense, and that's what both guys are going to do. As far as the other matchup with Arthur and Tyler, Tyler has very few flaws in his game. Tyler is a pure boxer. He's been with Joe Board for several years now. He knows to listen to his coach. He's fundamental. He's humble. He's really grown. He's not going to make any mistakes. Don't look for Tyler Ainsco to go out and make a mistake and lose the fight because he did something wrong. That's not going to happen. Arthur is strong, fast, long, elusive, relentless. When he starts to put punches together, he puts them together. He's dangerous. I feel like he's a little bit more dangerous than Tyler is. Tyler's more fundamental. But Arthur's gotten a lot better. Like, Arthur's boxing's gotten a lot better. And if Tyler has to mix it up, he can. No way to predict the winner on this. These are 50-50 fights. They're going to love their belts. I love them. And I'm super excited about it. But I think both matchups come down to who's better that night.
I completely agree. I wouldn't pick one I wouldn't be able to do it to save my life. So I'm glad I don't have to.
Well, and I go all the way back to the beginning. I filled out a bracket of the heavyweights. I wanted to see how close I would get. I took Matt Adams on a recommendation from Teddy Bear. I'd never seen the kid fight in my life. And I had him out in the first round. I didn't know anything about him. Here he is. He's in championship. So if you can't predict the first round, how are you going to predict the 4th round?
Yeah. So talking about Arthur Brown, and then there's been several other fighters that have already fought. And then there's going to be several more in Huntington, kind of one-off, bouts. Hopefully we see in the future, maybe next year, to see who's going to be in the next tournament. Tell me a little bit about this new Street Beast, collaboration. I know that you've been working with those guys a lot. They're super famous online. I know I've been watching them for years. So it's kind of weird that it's coming together. It's awesome. It's super exciting, but just tell me a little bit about that.
So when you talk about amateur boxing, you have USA Boxing, which is basically a pure point system. You have your semi-pro contest, which is more of a brawl bar fighting, and you have street beefs, which is backyard, whatever. The difference in street beefs and everything else is I've seen all different kinds of fighters from all over the country, different ages, different experience levels. So what street beefs brings to the table is they have a great following. They have 2.5 million subscribers on YouTube. These guys are actually, even though they may be fighting in front of 50 people in somebody's yard, they know what it's like that when they put the gloves on, they're going to be fighting in front of a bunch of people, like 1 million people might see their video. Right. So what we did was I sat down with the owner of Street Beefs, Chris Wilmore, his name on there is Scarface. So we sat down with Face and we really put a bunch of stuff together and said, who are the picks of the litter? Like, who's ready right now? Let's see how these guys transition into real boxing in a ring. 2-minute rounds, different stuff like that against the guys who have been in the ring. And I'm super excited about it. Some of the guys, Omar, the Iraqi assassin, I think he's got a high ceiling. Arthur Brown's in our championship. He's a Street Beefs guy. So Arthur Brown, undefeated kind of there in Street Beefs, he brings a lot to the table. You go down through the card, it is littered with guys, whether it's Rob Perez, Emil, Money Meal Barber. He's got a great high ceiling. So there's some of these guys. Now I circled 5 fights on the card other than our main events that I think are big time fights. Some of them we're familiar with. Gabe Lambert returns. Gabe Lambert against Derek Gibson. I mean, that could have very well been our finals in the tournament.
Absolutely.
So that's an awesome fight. Money Meal Barber out of Street Beefs versus Jordan Fife. Jordan is an amateur boxer. He's had a lot of fights. He's a pure boxer, a lot like Tyler Ainsco. He will stand in the middle of the ring and mix it up and try to knock somebody out. Money Meal Barber is going to come in to fight. He's more raw. He's strong for his size. He's fast. Those guys in Street Beefs have had a time trying to keep a handle on him. And then another return match, Keenan Williams and Mitchell Reynolds. I mean, if you were going to take pick of the litter, when we started this thing and you said you can pick one guy, I might have picked Mitchell Reynolds. Like, that kid is unbelievable. And Keenan Williams has proven so is he. And he's a Street Beefs guy, and has made noise in our tournament. Then another one that I don't know what to expect out of is Matt Crist versus Thomas Flannery. We're talking 6'5" versus 6'6". This is their first match each. Both of them heavy hands, big power. Who knows what's going to happen? I don't think we're going to need the judges. Usually when guys are that big, it ends up happening. And then the last one that I had circled was the Iraqi assassin Omar versus Zach Gillenwater. That's a perfect example of somebody who's grew up as a boxer and somebody who's coming straight out of Street Beefs, who's learning to box, but has all the physical tools. And this is the matchup we talk about all the time, the fighter versus the boxer, and we'll see who wins.
I mean, how awesome is it that all these guys who had started in this tournament in their mind thinking that they were going to win and absolutely had every right to believe that, because nobody would have been shocked. And now they're coming back again to fight each other again. I remember Gillenwater was heated. And it wasn't anything disrespectful. I think he was just mad in general because he wanted to win, and he thinks he's the best boxer in the state, light heavyweight, and he wanted to win the thing. And now he's coming back again, to fight another guy, that he probably has never seen box. I mean, it's super impressive. Iron sharpens iron. We've said it 1,000 times, and it is, these guys are just going to keep getting better because they're facing each other. It's impressive. And hats off to those guys for coming back time after time to fight the best.
And, this group of individuals, one thing about this group that people don't see or know is there's a lot of times in promoting or matchmaking when you're trying to talk somebody into a good fight. Like when I asked Gabe Lambert to get back on the card, he didn't care who he fought. And I even ran it by him. I'm like, well, Derek Gibson's out here. You both kind of spend time in Parkersburg, that area. Like, this would be a really big fight. And he's like, I don't care, Chase, whoever. Same thing with Derek. When I told Derek, I said, what about Gabe Lambert? He's like, whatever, I'm in. Mitchell, Keenan, I could go all the way through this. Zach Gillenwater's from Boone County. Zach Gillenwater is living in Lincoln County, small town. And now he realizes he's going to be fighting, win or lose, in front of maybe millions of people on YouTube after this thing wraps up. And he never batted an eye at it, so hats off to these guys. I've never seen a group of individuals who didn't say, no, that guy's too tall. No, I don't like left-handed. No, he's got too many fights. These guys were evenly matched. They knew it. They accepted the fight. Hats off to them, man. Like it, you talk about a group of individuals that's gutsy, that don't care, that's true fighters. We're going to show them on December 3rd.
Hands down.